Right now, there is a very high chance you're either at a job, on your way to a job, or recovering from a job. If you aren't doing any of those things, you are probably thinking about how you need to find one. We have carved our entire lives into neat 40-hour blocks, governed by ticking clocks, email pings, and the dread of Monday mornings. It feels natural because it is all we have ever known. But on the timeline of human history, the concept of a 9 to 5 is basically a brand new invention. For 99% of our species' existence, jobs simply did not exist. There were no bosses, no taxes, no careers, and no retirement plans. So, what did our ancestors actually do all day? The traditional story we are told in history class is that prehistoric life was a brutal, non-stop nightmare of survival. We picture cavemen waking up at dawn, shivering in the cold, and running around in a state of constant panic, desperately trying not to starve. It sounds exhausting, but in the 1960s, anthropologists began studying the few remaining hunter-gatherer societies left on Earth, and what they discovered completely shattered this myth. They called hunter-gatherers the original affluent society. It turns out securing food did not take all day. On average, ancient humans only spent about 3 to 5 hours a day on what we would call work. That is 15 to 25 hours a week. Once the hunting and gathering were done, their survival needs were met. They didn't have to fill out spreadsheets to justify the rest of their afternoon. So, if work only took up a fraction of their day, how did they spend the remaining 12 hours of daylight? They did something we have largely forgotten how to do. They rested. Without a clock on the wall, time was not a resource to be spent or managed. It was just a natural stream. Ancient humans slept when they were tired, woke up when they were rested, and took frequent naps. Their sleep was fluid. If they woke up in the middle of the night, they didn't lie there, stressing about their morning commute. They sat by the embers of the fire, talked, looked at the stars, and went back to sleep when they felt like it. When they weren't napping, they spent an enormous amount of time keeping up their social networks. In a small tribe of 50 people, relationships were your only real safety net. If you fell and broke your leg, your survival depended entirely on whether your tribe liked you enough to carry you and share their food. Because of this, socializing was serious business. They talked, they joked, and they gossiped. Anthropologists believe that gossip was actually the original social media, a vital biological mechanism for figuring out who was trustworthy, who was lazy, and who was sleeping with whom. They also spent hours grooming each other. Picking dirt and bugs out of a friend's hair sounds gross to us. But to mammals, it is the ultimate bonding experience. It releases a flood of oxytocin, lowers heart rates, and communicates safety. It was the Stone Age version of a spa day, and they did it constantly. Of course, they also had chores, but prehistoric chores were deeply self-paced and highly social. A hunter didn't sit in a cubicle to sharpen his spearhead. He did it while sitting in a circle with his friends, sharing jokes and teaching his son how to strike the flint. Women didn't gather berries in silent isolation. They went out in groups, singing songs, gossiping, and letting the children play in the grass nearby. Even work was a highly conversational, communal experience. Crafting tools, softening leather hides, and weaving baskets were done at a leisurely pace, integrated seamlessly into the social fabric of the day.
This doesn't mean the Stone Age was a perfect, stress-free paradise. Life was precarious. If you got a deep cut, you couldn't get antibiotics. Infant mortality was incredibly high, and a bad winter could still wipe out a family. But the daily stress they experienced was acute and temporary, like running from a lion, not the chronic, low-grade, endless anxiety of modern deadlines and credit card debt. Perhaps the biggest difference between their day and ours is how we treat boredom. In a world with no smartphones, no television, and no internet, boredom was not a crisis to be solved with endless scrolling. It was just space. It was the quiet gap between tasks where creativity could happen. It was where they designed the first cave paintings, invented new languages, composed songs, and looked at a piece of wood until they figured out how to turn it into a bow. We built a modern world of extreme efficiency, wealth, and convenience, but we paid for it with our time. The deadliest threat to our ancestors' daily peace wasn't the hard work, it was the lack of it. The next time you find yourself staring at an overflowing inbox, wishing you had just a few more hours in the day, it is worth remembering that for most of human history, we had all the time in the world, and we spent it sitting in the grass, talking to our friends, and waiting for the sun to go down.